Welcome to Pasadena Monthly. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guests, Rick Gould and John Onderdonk of the One Arroyo Foundation. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena Media News Briefs.
The Pasadena City Service Center celebrates its 10th anniversary. The City Service Center, or CSC, is a centralized service to help Pasadena residents connect with their city. You can visit the City Service Center to learn about city programs, such as bus routes, services, such as trash and recycling, and events hosted by the City of Pasadena. To get in contact with the City Service Center, you can call 626-744-7311. For more information about the City Service Center, please visit cityofpasadena.net. The Pasadena Unified School District has named its administrators for the 2024 through 25 school year. Helen Chan Hill has been appointed Chief Academic Officer. Saman Bravo Karimi has been named the district's Chief Business Officer. Eric Barba has been selected as Pasadena High School's principal. Jason Taylor returns to his post as Assistant Principal of Pasadena High School. Brian Lanigan has been appointed Interim Assistant Principal of Pasadena High School. Noemi Orvuna has accepted a position as Assistant Principal of Pasadena High School. Lanisha McKenzie's title has officially changed from Interim Principal to Principal of Elliott Arts Magnet. Arian Whitley has been selected as Principal of Octavia E. Butler Magnet. Ella Farinas returns to Octavia E. Butler Magnet as Assistant Principal. Maria Tolliver has been selected as Principal of McKinley School. Jeanette Scholar has been appointed Assistant Principal of McKinley School. Marcela Valadez has been appointed Assistant Principal of Marshall Fundamental. Vivian Huang has been appointed Interim Executive Director of Special Education. Christina Turley has been appointed Director of Planning, Innovation, Accountability, and Special Projects. Marion Stewart has accepted a position as the district's Coordinator of Multi-Tiered Systems of Supports. Sally Iverson has been appointed SELPA Administrator. These appointments will all go into effect on July 1st, 2024. For more information, visit pusd.us. The City of Pasadena is hiring a new director of the Rent Stabilization Department. The role was established by the Pasadena City Council in December of 2023. Per recommendation from the Pasadena Rental Housing Board, City Manager Miguel Marquez appointed Helen Morales. Morales has worked in various roles in the California Department of Housing and Community Development, where she currently serves. She has also worked with the City of Los Angeles, the County of Los Angeles, and the City of Beverly Hills, where she established a new rent stabilization division. "I am honored to join the City of Pasadena and lead this important department," said Morales. Morales' service in Pasadena will begin on July 1st, 2024.
Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. The Pasadena City Council has approved a number of charter amendment measures to be placed on the November 5th ballot. One would require applicants for vacant council seats to have lived in Pasadena rather than a specific district, as unanimously recommended by the Charter Study Task Force, for 6 months before being appointed. One would require just 4 votes instead of 5 to appoint a mayor pro tem or acting mayor if the mayoral seat is vacated. One would establish term limits of 3 consecutive 4-year terms with the possibility of serving 2 additional 4-year terms after a 4-year hiatus. One would mandate that a council compensation committee, which has not convened since 2000, convene at least once every 5 years to evaluate council member salaries and benefits. They also set campaign finance limits of $1,000 per person for council candidates and $2,500 per person for mayoral candidates by ordinance, though a charter amendment would prohibit changes to the ordinance for 4 years. The council also voted to bring that draft campaign finance limits ordinance back within 60 days. And they voted to add a $195 million bond to the ballot to fund the retrofit of the Central Library. 2. UCLA's Center for Neighborhood Knowledge presented a study to the city's Reconnecting Communities 710 Advisory Group, which found that construction of the 710 and 210 freeways in the 1960s and 70s dramatically reshaped the city's racial makeup between 1950 and 1980, polarizing neighborhoods and increasing segregation. In 1950, people of color made up 52% of the 710 stub area. By 1980, that number declined to 23%. The advisory group also recently looked at physical reconnection, place creation, community cohesion, economic vitality, ecosystem health, and community health as they deliberate on what should be done with that land. The city also hosted its first major community engagement event to gather ideas about the 710 redevelopment project, and turnout was high. Meanwhile, consultant Allegra has been interviewing residents impacted by the freeway construction and recently completed a survey asking for stories of those who were displaced. 3. Law firm Hahn & Hahn delivered a presentation to the city's Human Relations Commission this month, during which they announced a new educational program called Housing Inequality and Activism in Pasadena. Starting next month, Pasadena students and teachers can participate in the program, designed for 9th to 12th graders and college students, and featuring 3 to 4 weeks of lessons about the history of the city's past housing discrimination practices and the lingering impacts of those practices. This program was born out of a dialogue between Hahn & Hahn and community groups after it came to light that Herbert Hahn and then Mayor Al Stewart led a discriminatory and racially restrictive housing campaign in Pasadena in the 1930s and 40s. 4. City Manager Miguel Marquez said the city hasn't immediately changed its day-to-day approach to homelessness following the recent Supreme Court decision to uphold a law in Grants Pass, Oregon, which allows cities to implement bans on camping on public property. Any policy changes would only happen after staff gathers more information and the City Council considers the issue at a future meeting. 5. The Council extended independent police auditor Dr. Richard Rosenthal's contract by 6 months, which will end on January 6. At that point, Dr. Rosenthal said he plans to retire. City staff will begin the RFP process to seek a new auditor. Meanwhile, Dr. Rosenthal released a comprehensive report that pointed to multiple areas where the police department's complaint process could be improved, better serve the community, and ensure accountability. He reported that shortcomings included inadequate communication with complainants and missed opportunities for community engagement. 6. Public Works staff and consultant Apex Architecture delivered an update on the Colorado Street Bridge Barriers Project to the Public Safety Committee this month. A stakeholders working group consisting of fire and police officials, mental health professionals, city staff, and local organizations that has been studying various options over the past year largely favor a vertical barrier as opposed to horizontal netting, which comes with its own set of challenges. After years of consideration, a consensus has not emerged, but the team will continue to refine and develop a comprehensive approach. Acting Public Works Director Chris Markarian said staff is, quote, truly exhausted looking at various mitigation measures. 7. The new director of the city's new rent stabilization department, Helen Morales, presented a budget update to the Rental Housing Board and reported significant underspending in its first year of operation, largely due to delayed onboarding of new staff. Also, the council voted to place minor amendments to the rent control section of the charter on the November ballot, including revision of rental registry deadlines, board member removal process, clarification of legal requirements, and more. 8. The Tournament of Roses Association removed longtime and award-winning float builder Fiesta Parade Floats from its list of authorized builders, citing Fiesta's failure to meet financial and technical criteria. Fiesta has built floats for the Rose Parade for 36 years, and Fiesta founder Tim Estes said he was decimated and disheartened and would miss the parade. Phoenix Decorating Company and Artistic Entertainment Services, as well as multiple one-off floats such as the ones built by the cities of South Pasadena, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and Downey, remain authorized by the tournament to continue building Rose Parade floats. Tournament Communications Director Candy Carlson told Pasadena Now that they are confident that their 2 remaining commercial float builders can accommodate all float participants approved for the 2025 Rose Parade. 9. Pasadena Public Works Department Director Tony Olmos left his position on July 11th after 2 years with the city. He began a similar position with the city of Inglewood on July 22nd. Chris Markarian is serving as acting director as the city manager's office begins the recruitment process for the permanent director. Also, Public Health Department Director Dr. Ying Go, who was my very first guest on this show back in April 2021, has left her position and will now serve as clinical lead for a team working on improving postpartum maternal health under U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. And 10, the Ambassador Auditorium has been listed for sale for $45 million for the first time since 2004, when it was purchased by Harvest Rock Church for $19 million. A city spokesperson told Pasadena Now that the city of Pasadena does not plan to purchase the 1,200-seat, 45,000 square foot performing arts venue. Harvest Rock Church plans to relocate. Let's welcome our guests, Rick Gould and John Onderdonk of the One Arroyo Foundation. Thank you both so much for coming on the show.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Rick is the managing director of the One Arroyo Foundation. He retired in 2017 after 17 years as the director of the City of Santa Clarita's Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department. And John is the vice president of the One Arroyo Foundation. He also serves as the assistant vice president of Facilities, Operations, and Services, and as chief sustainability officer at Caltech. So when and where did this idea, and what is this idea of the One Arroyo Foundation? Why was it needed?
I think what happened was back in late 2016, 2017, there were a number of members of the city leadership, in particular Terry Tornick, city manager Steve Mermel, Daryl Dunn from the Rose Bowl, got together and said that they felt like the Arroyo needed more attention. They formed a group back then called the Arroyo Advisory Group. And that group met. It was a group of about 20 leaders from across the community. That group met and took a look at the Arroyo from a holistic perspective and tried to decide, did no more attention need to be paid to it? And if so, what did that mean? And what it really came down to is the Arroyo, at least in Pasadena, has three very distinct areas. And the idea was to try to come up with unifying themes in order to promote the Arroyo, potentially do projects in the Arroyo, rehabilitate or restore the Arroyo, quite a myriad of ideas. And that Arroyo Advisory Group ultimately recommended formation of the One Arroyo Foundation.
And you've both been involved since those early stages?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Mayor Bogart came to me and asked me to join, so it's sort of hard to say no to that, obviously. But yeah, I've been there from the beginning.
I actually consulted the Arroyo Advisory Group after I retired, even before One Arroyo was founded, and so was in on the ground floor of putting the pieces together.
And so it's basically a public-private partnership, and the group looked at Central Park in New York City, other models. What did you learn from that?
Yeah, I think that it is intended to be a public-private partnership. Clearly, there's a lot of stakeholders in the Arroyo. The early trips to the Central Park and the Conservancy there were really to learn, I think, about what worked there. You know, it's important to learn, I think, about these various organizations and other great open spaces and urban parklands in the U.S. But, you know, not that there's a specific model that will always work or will work here in all conditions, but learning from those to apply those lessons and make sure that, you know, we can help the city and how to figure out how we can preserve this space for the long term.
And so the initial project, the Trails Improvement Project, broke ground earlier this month. What does that project entail? What does the construction timeline look like?
So the project was envisioned as that unifying project. And so it was set out by the city council in a final report in 2018. They said we ought to make the trail, the backbone trail through the Arroyo, a focus. We set out in 2020 with a design and public process to get input from the community about what they wanted to see. Ultimately, we ended up with two project locations for what we call the demonstration projects. And when I say demonstration projects, it's important to say that we were proving that One Arroyo Foundation could do it, could raise the money privately for it and give it to the city and then jointly produce the project. So we have two project locations. It broke ground, as you said, in about a week or so ago. We anticipate construction starting on the two project sites around the middle of August, probably August 19th, with about 4 months of construction. Ultimately, it's about 3.5 miles of trail, 2 miles on the northern location and about 1.5 miles on the southern location. The northern location is directly below Devil's Gate Dam, all the way down to the golf course. And the southern location essentially is underneath the Colorado Street Bridge.
And trails improvement, what kind of things will be improved on the trails?
It's looking at a lot of the erosion mitigation, right? So some of those trails, particularly in the last couple of years with some of the severe storms we've had, have been pretty well eroded. So it's restoring the trails to that previous status. A lot of other features where right now it's difficult to walk across some of those areas, either the slope or there are large boulders in the way, right, and so forth. We're moving some of those to make it a little bit easier. There's also areas that need actual steps, need proper direction of the water flow. and a couple of other areas where we want to look at sort of safety and accessibility area aspects.
And where is the funding coming from for these projects?
I would say we've raised the money from three principal sources. We've had very generous board members who have contributed and allowed us to operate and build the design and then get to the construction phase. We've had a number of private foundations who have contributed to us, as well as some general public who have made contributions to Arroyo. And then we've received a number of very important public grants. Early on, we received a grant from Proposition A from the 5th District, Catherine Barger, from the County of Los Angeles. The City of Pasadena allocated funds through their capital improvement program. One of the largest donors was the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy through Proposition 68, which was $1 million grant. We have several other grants that have just been awarded, another out of Prop 68 through the state of California, some private foundations, including the Asher Foundation. I should mention Parsons, Kaiser, so a lot of community involvement, but primarily the majority of the construction money is coming out of public grants that the foundation has pursued.
Gotcha. And tell us about the Mayberry Parker Bridge and how that plays into it. A lot of people don't even know about that bridge. It's underneath the Colorado Street Bridge, been closed off for a long time. And will that be reopened?
Yeah, it's actually a second phase of work that we're going to do. It's not part of the initial construction we're going to do. We found early on in the process that there was a lot of desire on the part of residents to reopen that bridge to pedestrian traffic. We took a look at it. We expanded our design footprint with a change order. Our designer came up with some ideas on how to do it. One of the other things that we heard very strongly from the community was a desire to restore the old stone walls in the Arroyo. And there happened to be a bunch of very nice old stone walls right next to the Mayberry Parker Bridge. So the second phase of the project, which we hope will commence in the spring of 2025, it is funded, will open up the Mayberry Parker Bridge to pedestrian traffic, as well as restore stone walls and some of the staircases that surround that location. It's really a fabulous historical location going back to 1900 and Scoville Farms. It will really offer an opportunity for people to see some stuff that they may not have ever seen before in the Arroyo.
It'll kind of connect some of the trails on either side.
And it's another way to get across the Arroyo. I mean, the Arroyo in many places is covered in concrete, and getting across that is not easy. And here's a bridge built in 1917 that we can use, been closed to the public, as you mentioned, and we get to open it up. That's a great opportunity.
Is there any looking at removing some of that concrete? I guess there has to be some channel there, but making it back to its natural state at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those projects so I think everyone, either growing up in Pasadena or being involved or familiar with the Arroyo, has kind of looked at and seen on the horizon. And so certainly we're aware of that, and that's a long-term project, right? We talked about the many stakeholders in the Arroyo, right? That particular project involves even more stakeholders, right? So it's a very complex project, but worthwhile to think about very deliberately and carefully in how we proceed. The initial steps here are to demonstrate our effectiveness and ability to get projects done, make improvements, preservation in the Arroyo, right? Demonstrate the effectiveness of our organization, and hopefully that will grow, ultimately someday into kind of those grand projects that we all hope for. We could do.
What are some of those future phases? What are some other non-trail projects that you're looking at? The three sections of the Arroyo sort of serve different functions. Upper Arroyo, watershed. Central is recreational, commercial. Lower Arroyo, more open space.
Yep.
So what are some of the future projects, and how can they unify those three sections?
We're looking at that right now actively, right? And we think it's very important, the distinction between the three sections of the Arroyo, and to maintain that, right? Particularly with the north and southern portions being much more wild and open space, right? The Central Arroyo is very unique in the sense that it's focused on, family and athletics and obviously the Rose Bowl, right? So we want to preserve that, but connecting it and allowing people and wildlife, right, to traverse across the Arroyo and through the Arroyo is a really important part of what we're thinking about. So clearly trails are one way to do it. There's access to the sides of the Arroyo, the neighborhoods, right? But there's also other projects that are about kind of development of places that need a little bit more love. There's the rock walls we mentioned. There's an amphitheater in the central Arroyo that's beautiful and could be restored. The southern part of the Arroyo, Lower Arroyo, is very much about open space and nature, and so all the things that we would do in those areas would be light touch and focused on the connectivity, right? In the Hahamungna area, there's of course opportunities around Hahamungna, reservoir itself, the parkland there, the Forest Service buildings potentially. There's so many opportunities, and a lot of this depends on building that collaborative approach with all the stakeholders, with the city of Pasadena, and understanding what's on the city of Pasadena's priority list as far as the capital improvement projects go, and then picking the opportunities to collaborate.
Yeah, you mentioned there are so many stakeholders involved. Everyone cares deeply about the Arroyo. How do you navigate that and make sure everyone is a part of the process?
We spent a lot of time, and it's kind of interesting, our initial process where we were asking for feedback actually started right before COVID. And so much of our outreach occurred during COVID and was done online. But we had thousands of page views of the proposed project. We received significant public feedback, including 157 written responses to specific things that we should accomplish. So we have a fairly good feel there. We've spent a lot of time reaching out to the local organizations that are important in the Arroyo, not only the stakeholders who actually have a physical place like Kid Space or the Aquatic Center or Mach 1 up in Hahamungna, but also the neighborhood associations, San Rafael Neighborhood Association, WPRA, Linda Vista Annandale Association. So we're in contact with that, as well as the council districts. So we're trying to gauge constantly what's going on. We're out talking to local groups. I chatted with a group of equestrians for 2 hours the other night. As they come up out of San Pasqual stables, they're big users of the Arroyo, and being aware of their needs is just as important as a family taking a walk.
Why did each of you get involved with this project, and what does the Arroyo mean to Pasadena?
Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up on the rim of the Arroyo, so to speak, and so it was my backyard, and spent a lot of time playing and exploring, and then as I grew older, obviously playing sports and formal stuff there, and so the Arroyo has always been a foundational place for me in my life and who I am, and in fact many reasons why I pursued sustainability as a career is due to the fact that I've had early exposure to that open space. So I joined because one, I care about it, obviously, but two, I want that experience and that foundational place to be available to others, right? And so that hopefully those other people can have that same experience and take that in the ways that they want. So to me, that's an important part of why I'm doing this.
After 40 years in the Parks and Recreation field, it's sort of it was a natural fit for me. And like John, we're actually neighbors. We didn't know each other until One Arroyo, but we lived just a couple of blocks from each other on the rim of the Arroyo. So that became a natural fit for us as well. But I think, the last probably 6 or 7 years when I was working, my main focus was open space preservation. And so living near the Arroyo, open space preservation, One Arroyo seemed a natural fit for me.
Is there anything else that the community should be aware of about this project going forward, and how can the community get involved and support this project?
I think the big thing is keep an eye on our website, which is onearroyo.org. When we can, we will post updates. Now, the project is actually being managed by the city. We're involved, obviously. We'll try to post updates. There may be periods of time where there are closures of the trail, particularly as John described, when we may be doing some staircasing. You may need to have a large closure area for a week or so. Our website or the city's project website should give updates on when trail closures would occur. In terms of getting involved, you want to support the organization, reach out to us. Reach out to John, reach out to myself, and we can see if there's a place. Our organization is growing. We've been very board focused and a fairly limited staff. We are right at the cusp of expanding into something like a Friends of the Arroyo that allows a lot more people to become involved with.
Yep. And that's the exciting part for me is that we're early days, right? In this, we've put a lot of work in, so it doesn't feel like early days for many of us, but it's still early days, and we have the projects to carry us through now. And then I'm excited about what we can build on that. And the way we build on that is by getting more engagement, more ideas, understanding what the stakeholder needs are, right? And sharing that in a collaborative space, right? So, yeah, engaging with us and reaching out. Meeting us in the Arroyo, and we'll hopefully have lots of other events, and just kind of spreading the good word about things that we can all do to protect the Arroyo.
Great. Well, it's an exciting project. Arroyo is obviously one of the crown jewels, if not the crown jewel of Pasadena. So
Yeah.
thank you both, John, Rick,
Yeah.
for coming out and talking to us
Thank
about
you.
it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really appreciate
Pleasure.
it. Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1945, July 6th, on the eve of the end of the Second World War, when two black and white checkered V-2 rockets, the Nazis' most feared weapon, which had bombarded the peoples of England and Belgium, arrived in Pasadena on an open flatbed rail car, according to author George Pendle in his book Strange Angel about Jack Parsons, whose work helped lay the foundation of the U.S. rocketry program and of JPL. Pendle wrote, quote, "Allied forces had recently captured an underground factory in Germany's Harz Mountains, where the weapons had been manufactured by slave labor. They were now at Caltech to be studied. The 46-foot-long missiles had a vicious, sleek grace. These rockets held within them the promises of space and the future. The people of Pasadena thronged to see them," end quote. In addition to harvesting Nazi rockets, through a program called Operation Paperclip, the U.S. government also harvested Nazi scientists, such as Werner von Braun, who helped develop the dreaded V-2. Caltech and JPL played no small role in the space race that unfolded between the U.S. and the Soviet Union following the war. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Monthly. Tune in every fourth Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Drop me a line at jchapman@cityofpasadena.net. We'll see you next time.